Hello, everyone. This is Minister William, or Reverend Will, if you wish, and this is the sermon for June 4th, 2023. And as always, we'll start with a moment of silence for prayer, meditation, or what have you. All right, thank you. Today's sermon will be called "The Prince and the Three Dolls," and the story is on alltimeshortstories.com. It was the third moon of the prince's 27th year. He was waiting for the arrival of an old sage from overseas. He was informed that the sage wasn't very far from the city gates and would arrive by the very night of the same day. The sage has been traveling for nearly half a century now. The journey had contributed a significant amount of understanding and experience of life, making him a very wise man. The prince pondered upon the possible advices the sage would be giving him, especially now that that various changes have been dawning on him, for he was to inherit the throne. He was desperate to hear the things the sage had to say. His days of gratuity were ceasing to end. Thus far he had lived his life enjoying and taking advantage of every privilege and power inherited by his position. He was absolutely aware of the uh, disapproval of the extremely entertained life he led by his brothers. They were also concerned that his sometimes arrogant, boastful, and indulgent behaviors were signs of an incomplete ruler or incompetent ruler. But the people who were really close to him worshipped him for his generosity and kind nature. If he was a callous and ambitious, if he was a callous and ambitious like the way his brothers thought he was, he otherwise would be reluctant and terrified to take over the throne. His older brother was a hopeless drunkard who was unworthy of the throne. For the prince, was no escaping from the king's convictions about him being a capable successor. It was an impossible situation. Anxiousness overpowered him as he felt the days of his youth slip away. With every passing, his responsibilities were growing. Every day there was so much to do, so many decisions to be made, and so many unusual situations to handle. It was already late in the night, and the sage hadn't arrived yet. He slipped into his bed and immediately drifted off into a deep sleep. That night in his dreams he saw an owl handling a ribbon in its hands of a human. The ribbon was for his mind. The ribbon was for his mind. He was refusing to accept it. When he was awoken by one of his courtsmen, the sage had arrived and was waiting in the prince's courtroom. "I'm sorry to have awakened you," the prince heard the old mystic say to him as he walked into the room. The sage bowed in respect and continued. It took me longer to explore the city than I had anticipated. There isn't much I can say or give you. My ship leaves at dawn. Please accept my humble counsel, Your Highness. The prince and the traveler sat together for a conversation, accompanied the by plenty of food and wine. Hours passed, many stories exchanged. The few hours they had weren't enough to say anything they had to share. Before departing, the sage assured the prince that the kingdom would do fine under his rule. I was unsure which gift I should leave with you at first, the mystic said. I had it in mind, but my decision was confirmed only after the meeting. He took out a package from his bag and handed it over to the prince. The prince accepted the gift with gratitude. After unwrapping, he had a box in his hand. He opened the lid only to see three small dolls inside. The dolls were seemingly ancient and fit for a toddler. Their faces were cracked and their hair was stringy. Don't worry, they were neither for children nor women, the sage said, reading the confusion on the prince's face. Their value goes beyond the aesthetic. They are for you alone. I want you to place them in such a place in your room wherein they will never miss your eyes. If you examine them carefully, you will see a hole in the ears of each doll, the sage said, handing him a piece of string. Thread the hole. The perplexed prince picked up the first doll and did as he was told. The thread entered through the hole in one ear and emerged through the hole in the other. This is the first type of person. Whatever you tell him, it comes out the other ear. He doesn't retain anything, the sage explained. Now go for the second one. Curiously, the prince inserted the string in the hole through the hole of the second doll, and it came out the mouth. This is the second type of person, said the sage. He explained. Whatever you tell him, he tells everyone else. The prince then picked up the third doll. The string emerged out. The string did emerge out from anywhere, or didn't emerge out from anywhere. And this is the third type, said the sage. Whatever you tell him is locked up within. It never comes out. The prince doubtfully looked at the sage. There weren't many of his kind. What was all of this anyway? The attributes of the three dolls are in fact not separate, but incorporated within a single person itself, the sage explained. A man must know when to listen, when to remain silent, and when to speak. Develop a skill and you will be Develop the skill and you will be a wise ruler. Practice it and you will be able to read and identify your enemies and your friends. If you master this skill, the ruling of your kingdom will then become less complicated affair. And that's it. There's no moral on the thing. But yes. They say, like, bosses, about how leaders lead, and that they always lead as one of their people. Whatever. They listen to the people they lead. A good, uh, a good leader doesn't rule over his people. He serves his people. So the leader has to know when to listen and know when to talk and when not to, so that he can more fairly take care of his people. And you don't have to be a leader to do this. Anyone that you need to take care of, anyone, you can be, I guess, all kind of a leader. You, like a boss or a parent or something, like the person that's stereotypically in charge. Um, in order to make things better for the people in your care, you have to know when to listen, when to talk, and when not to talk. But that is it for this week. Remember, when we all come together, the possibilities are endless. And happy Pride Month, and I will see you next week. Bye.